Buckeyes fans, the time is here. The Ohio State Buckeyes are getting ready to travel out west to take on the Oregon Ducks in a matchup that's going to feature the number 2 team, Ohio State, versus the number 3 team, the Oregon Ducks. We're breaking down Ohio State's offense versus the Oregon defense tonight on the Buckeye Breakdown Podcast.
We've got the whole crew together as we cover Ohio State with our instant analysis from Ohio State.
There's something that doesn't feel right.
Unbelievable effort from him today. Is E.J. Liddell going to crack the first team All Big Ten?
I think he can be the guy. I'm not trying to start a quarterback controversy.
He seems to have the durability. He certainly has the toughness. This is the question on a lot of people's minds here. Welcome to Buckeye Breakdown.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the Buckeye Breakdown Podcast. Excited to be with you tonight, talking about the marquee matchup of the weekend. Anthony Moeglin here with you with my partner, Kevin Woidke. And Kevin, it feels really, really good to talk about a football game that's coming up on Saturday that's going to have the eyes of the nation on it and have all the attention from both sides as they get prepared for what's going to be the crown jewel on Saturday, the marquee matchup, Ohio State versus Oregon.
Absolutely. I mean, it looked like it was going to shape up to be an unreal game for college football, and a few of those teams have started to lose. And this is it. This is the battle of 2 undefeateds. And, this is the first, heavyweight battle that Ohio State's going to have. I mean, they've had some mid-card fights so far, but sooner or later they knew this day was coming, and I think they're ready for it. I think they also have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder from when Oregon came into Columbus and stepped on their throats.
Yeah. I mean, it's got everything you want. And this team, we've talked about it a bunch, how mature they've been in their approach all year long. Like, hey, we're just going to take care of business of whatever's in front of us. And for them, what's in front of them now is a 3-game stretch. And I talked about it last night on one of our quick hitter segments, that if you haven't seen yet, go check them out. Just do some short 2-minute episodes, kind of previewing just one topic a night. But talked about this 3-game stretch that Ohio State's kind of going to enter in on. It's going to span a whole month. It's going to span 4 weeks, where they go Oregon this weekend, they go bye week, they come home against Nebraska, and then they head to Penn State. And it's been really impressive to see what the Big Ten has turned out to be in 2024, because I just pulled it up now. I didn't think I was going to do this, so I don't have it off the top of my head. You got Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State, the 2, 3, and 4 ranked teams. Then after that, you fall down to, let's see, I thought it was going to be a little bit better, but you get down to 18, where you get Indiana, which they're kind of knocking on the door of being a potential playoff team. And then Illinois is number 23 in the country. They had a huge win over Nebraska. The number 24 ranked team is Michigan. They'll probably fall out here in the next couple of weeks. But like, the Big Ten's become one of the power conferences, and it's obviously been the power conference in all of football, but it's really kind of like taking that next step to, hey, we got all the best teams. And for Ohio State, they're staring down the barrel of them, of 2 of them, and with that first one being the Oregon Ducks.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's shocking how, Big Ten team loses, they drop 12 spots. SEC team loses, it's like a fly hitting a windshield. But I'm not here to debate how they choose to rank, and it'll all shake out in the end how it should.
You're my favorite, dude. I feel like we could do a show on that right there.
Oh yeah, no, it's just crazy to think about. But the Big Ten is powerful this year. I mean, just look at Illinois is playing well, who doesn't usually play well. Indiana, I mean, which we didn't expect him to come in this soon and dominate like he is. But I mean, when you're playing some of those teams Indiana plays, Ohio State has the heavy hitters in the Big Ten every year, which is Michigan State, Penn State, Oregon this year, because again, shocking, but Oregon's in the Big Ten. And we're probably facing one of these teams again in the championship. I thought it was going to be back-to-back games of Ohio State versus Team Up North, but they look horrendous. Yeah. I mean, we'll see how it shakes out, but I mean, they don't look good by any capacity. I mean, they look like me trying to do gymnastics. It's just not good.
It's truth be told, it's like me playing quarterback for them. It is they've had a massive issue up there at the quarterback position. But you're right, man. It's like there's so many teams, and you look at a team like Indiana or even Illinois, who was able, and they took care of business, right? They played the teams that were in front of them. they didn't, like last year, you talk about them, they play Ohio State right off rip, right, week 1. And you already know that this team can't compete with that tier. And I'm not saying they can, but to this point in the season, they've just taken care of business. They've gone to the teams they've been on their schedule and they've beaten them, right? They haven't played the best teams yet, but they're still 6-0 and they look the part. And that could be said for Rutgers. That could be said for a lot of teams in this Big Ten. It's been really fun to see this conference really start to pick it all up.
Yeah. We got good coaches in this conference now.
True.
And Greg Schiano, somehow, I don't know how, but Rutgers seems to fall apart if the Schiano man isn't there playing the keys. Like, I mean, that's just what it is. Like, I don't get it. Good for him. I mean, he liked me. I liked him in his time at Ohio State. It didn't end great, but I mean, like, God, who's kicking themselves right now with Tennessee. They ran down, and I don't get it. But I mean, then you look at, they're just, teams are hiring good coaches. Like, I don't know how long. Indiana isn't a powerhouse, and if he sticks around there for a while, it might turn into one. But he's using this as a stepping stone. Like, you're telling me if Alabama drops 3 more games and not getting rid of Kalen DeBoer, he could go to Miami and do well. He could go to Florida State, which is
he could take all his JMU guys down to Florida State. They flip Indiana around. Maybe they got the sauce to flip Florida State around, whatever's going on.
Really, that's really what it is. I mean, we'll see what happens, but like, I mean, Florida State right now, I mean, you'd have a better idea of hitting a bullseye blindfold than you would have figured out what's going on down there. I mean, that's just what it is. I don't even mean, but I mean, like, are we calling spade a spade here?
We are.
I got dinosaurs on my shirt right now, but I mean, Florida State looks like a dinosaur right now.
You got them all tonight, dude. We had you caged up all week. We missed our show last night. We saved this for tonight. So yeah, there's so much going on. I know we got a lot of people in the show right now. So drop it in the comments. Maybe a team that you're looking forward to facing for Ohio State if you're a Buckeyes fan, or if you're like, hey, I'm nervous to face maybe a Penn State, or hey, Nebraska coming to town, maybe a little bit of a challenge because we got a lot of them coming our way. So drop them in the comments. We'll feature them. We'll bring some stuff up here as we continue on. But Kevin, for us tonight, we're previewing the Ohio State offense versus the Oregon defense. And where I think is a good place to start is talking personnel. This group is going to be, and this is an obvious statement, but the stiffest test that Ohio State has seen throughout the year, but they're going to have the best athletes and best players that Ohio State has seen. They got a couple studs on the second level. They got a lockdown corner on the back end. So I'll turn it to you. You tell us where we're starting, and we'll break down some personnel from the Ducks.
I mean, let's start with their best player. It's Bryce Bosher. I mean, he's got 32 tackles, 16 solos, 16 assists. He's got 3 PBUs and an interception. Only thing he's missing is a sack to be up there, probably in contention with the other best linebackers in the country. I mean, he's playing out of his mind. He looks really good out there. He's running around. He's giving me Luke Kuechly vibes right now. I mean, I know that's a very high praise to put on somebody, but through 4 games, it's impressive. He's averaging just under, I don't know the math on this. What is that? 7.5 tackles a game. Like,
well done.
It's close, but I mean, that's just what he's doing. And he's showing out. I mean, that's the only way to put it. I mean, I know you have the lockdown corner on the back end, but I mean, he's the best player. He's the one we're going to have to look out for. He's going to wreck it on the run game.
He sets the tone of the defense, right? And he's a guy who's having his best season. He is a senior, and he's an Oregon kid. He's from Eugene himself. But his best year to this point was last season, where he had 37 total tackles. He's already got 32 of them. So he's well on his way to having his best season in college. But he's more of your old school type of a guy. Stands at 6'2", 225 pounds. So he's going to be your bigger guy in the middle. And you're not going to miss him. He's going to be everywhere, wearing the number 28. He flies around and it tries to make life challenging when the opponent, and for our case, when our offense is on the field, when they're trying to run the football. Yes, he's going to stick his hand out there in the pass game, but his primary responsibility, stop the run, because on the back end, they trust what they got behind him. And it starts with Jabbar Muhammad, who stands at 5'10". He's a ball hawk in the back end. Doesn't have a pick yet, but what does stand out, he's got 6 PBUs and has been making life really challenging for opposing quarterbacks.
Yeah, he's got 6 PBUs and he's got 15 tackles. He's playing well. He's the one that they're throwing at and they're learning quickly they shouldn't be throwing at him. Like, I can't find the amount of times he's been targeted this year, but I mean, he's the guy that you don't want to really pick on. No.
Yeah. And the reason is you flip it over to the other side, and on the other side of the field, the guy who is getting targeted quite a bit, Kobe Savage, is the flip side. He's the senior on the back end. He has 1 PBU, no interceptions, and 18 tackles. Okay, and what that basically tells you is that he's not breaking up the football when it gets his way, but he's having to tackle it because he's giving up catches. And he's a guy that when they don't target Muhammad, they flip it over. They target Savage, and he's the guy you can kind of get after. And one thing that stands out to me, Kevin, is their size. You look at our receivers, and even Emeka has some nice height and weight to him. But Jeremiah Smith stands at 6'4", and he's a big body. Both of these corners are little guys. I can say that because I'm a little guy. Muhammad stands at 5'10". He weighs in at 185. And Savage is 5'11", 205. So these aren't physically imposing dudes. These are guys that, hey, if you get one-on-one matchups, Ohio State's going to try to take advantage of them. Yeah,
and that's just what they're known to do. I think that that's going to be a talking point. I mean, they give up about 162 passing yards. They're currently top 10 defense in the country, which is nothing to balk at. But, they obviously give up more passing yards than they do rushing yards. And I think it's a point to talk about because I think they're a little undersized. I mean, you can throw to tight ends, you can throw to bigger receivers against them. And that's just what they're doing. They're only giving up 17 points a game. But, I mean, I just think that they haven't really played anybody with the wide receiving core that we have yet.
Correct. I think that hits the nail right on the head. So a couple of decent guys in the back end. Obviously, you got Botcher in the middle, who's going to try to make your life hell all game long. But Kevin, take your podcasting hat off and put your left tackle hat back on. If I'm going to tell you're blocking a 6'6", 295-pound glass eater who's got 5 sacks already on the year, what is your approach all week long as you're preparing to stop a guy like Jordan Birch up front?
So you said what was his height and weight?
6'6", 295.
Okay, so like a thicker Chase Young. I already did that. But no, what I'm thinking is get my hands on him early. Be smart. They're going to slide him a lot. They're going to use chips. G. Scott will probably use to chip him at the line. I think our tackles are more than capable of holding up their own against them, but that's where Will's got to be smart with how long he's standing back there in the pocket because, you can – even if you go 70% of blocking him efficiently, that's still 3 sacks out of 10. Like that's not great numbers. You need to do better than that. And I think they'll key on him a little bit. I think this will be the first time they really have a true edge rusher coming off the edge that's going to be wreaking havoc. Will's stood pretty clean back there for most of the season. I think it'll just be interesting to watch how they choose to attack it. Personally, I would love to get a couple cut blocks at the beginning of the game, maybe soften up his knees a little bit, throw some screens, suck him upfield, maybe do a delayed draw so he rushes hard upfield, and then you just slip Judkins or Henderson underneath and run there. Those would be my 2 things that I would want as a tackle. Maybe roll out the other way, and then I get to hinge back on a waterfall technique and just try near hole him. I mean, that's what I'd want to
do. Those kind of blocks are dreams for for offensive tackles. One of the things that kind of stands out to me, just even talking with you every daily here and breaking the stuff down, communication up front. I think that we saw that against Iowa when they started doing some of those twists and stuff that you pointed out that were successful up front against our offensive line. I'd love to see kind of an uptick in communication, especially when you have a guy like this, along with some of their other ones. But Kev, before we move on, our buddy Doug's got something to say to you here. He jumps in. Shut your mouth. We would hate to see Sig at a Florida school. For sure sure we would not like that. Doug, we appreciate you always jumping in with us and watching right along. But
absolutely. Anthony, one more thing before we move on to people to look out for. Love to highlight Ohio guys on the teams we play. This week we got Justin Jacobs by way of Iowa, but originally from Inglewood, Ohio. Army All-American. His best game last year, he had 8 tackles in the Pac-12 championship game. Has half a sack so far this year with 14 tackles. He's having a decent year, transferred in last year, played in 8 games last year. It's always good to see. They talk about Ohio high school football and how powerful it is, and you can see it when we go play these teams on the West Coast that have kids from Ohio on the team.
It's always awesome. It's awesome to see how far Ohio high school football stretches. You and I were both born from Ohio high school football, so it's obviously near and dear to us. So always cool to see that. So all right, so we talked a little bit specifically about the personnel when it comes to Oregon, but now I kind of want to break down some of their actual game flow, because it's been an interesting start to the year for Oregon, being that they face Idaho in week 1 in a game that kind of felt similar to when Ohio State played Akron, and it was a game they should have dominated. And they were heavy favorites. And they actually had to sneak out a 24-14 win. And yes, Idaho, if you remember back, it's 5 weeks now, which is hard to believe, but they pulled out all the stops. They were doing the trick plays and the whole thing, and it was a lot of fun, but they gave Oregon a scare. And then they take on Boise State in week 2. And now this is a game that, I kind of have circled, because when they took on Boise State, they won 37-34, and they needed a last-second field goal to get it done. But obviously, Alshon Gentry from Boise State, if you're watching this show, you follow college football. And if you follow college football, you know Alshon Jeffrey's name, because he's going to be probably going to win the Heisman. He's got Barry Sanders-type numbers right now. And in that game, he had 25 carries for 192 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, since then, Oregon's defense has certainly picked up. They hold Oregon State to 14 points. In a victory, they hold UCLA, who's been off to a bad start, to 13 points. And in their first common opponent against Michigan State last week, they win 31-10 and totally shut the door on Sparty, just the same way that Ohio State did. So, Kevin, when I talk through those numbers there and kind of what this defense has done, Alshon Jeffrey's game certainly stands out to me, and that's got to be one Ohio State has circled and has probably watched a ton of, being that they got Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins coming to town.
100%. They, the game that they had, obviously, against Boise State was one where the kid's gifted. That's the way to put it. He's a very gifted running back. He turned down offers to go play at other schools because he wanted to stay at Boise State. I think that's commendable to him. I also think that, Travion and Quinshon are – I'm excited to watch them in twofold. One, they're downhill running against these smaller defensive backs, because if we can get them through to that second level, even that third level, it'll be interesting, especially on the sweeps, to see how these corners that are 5'11", 5'10", are going to be able to tackle them when some of these 6'1" Iowa linebackers had tough times tackling them. So that'll be interesting, to say the least. I think that the Michigan State game speaks numbers to me, because I watched it and they didn't look good at all for the first half. And if they have that kind of slow start again, look out, because we're not going to make the same mistakes. That game should have been a lot closer than it was. Michigan State fumbled on the 2-yard line.
And threw a pick or something too. And
they turned it over twice in the red zone, and then obviously Oregon also turned it over in the red zone, but it was a lot closer than it should have been.
Yeah.
It wasn't as close as it should have been. And I think that you're going to see that with the 2-headed monster that is our running back room. We're going to start to take advantage of that.
Yeah, and I think that, Spider, thanks for jumping in with us here and talking run game, because this is a huge area that Ohio State can really take advantage. And this kind of leads into our next point, because when I look at this, and it's kind of twofold here, Kev. You look at this run game and to what it's been to this point, and it's been really good, right? Obviously, Quinshon is the guy right now. He's got the most yards, 468 yards compared to Travion's 337. He also has 18 more carries, so he's been getting a little bit more of the load. And I don't think that that's anything to take crazy note of. Like, they're just going to start balancing each other out, and it's going to be it's going to be very even, especially as we get into late October and into November and into December. These guys are going to get some wear and tear on them. But this is an obvious group that this offense starts and ends with the run, right? If they can run the football, they're explosive. And Chip Kelly, his offense historically has started with the run. You go back to his days at Oregon, and this is going to be quite the homecoming for him. But they always had a good run game. Yes, he's highlighted by the flashy plays, the up-tempo offense, all of those things. But it all starts with a good run game, and he's going to try to run the football against a team that's going to be vulnerable. And I'm excited to see, kind of what the Buckeyes are able to do when they do tote the rock and run it down Oregon's throat.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I think you're going to see. We talked about their passing game already.
Yeah.
I think they are going to try and run it down their throat, especially if they get a lead early. They're going to try and start leaning on them, making them throw passes against our phenomenal defensive backing core, and they're just going to keep running it. I mean, obviously, you got Bryce in the middle, and I hate to say it, he might shut down G. Scott this week. I mean, he's obviously got the pass coverage abilities. I'm not by no means am I saying G. Scott's going to have a bad game. I'm just saying this is the best cover linebacker he's had to go against. 3 PBUs, 1 INT. I think it's going to be a lot closer. I don't see a lot of, who knows, maybe I'm hoping that, maybe Luke Montgomery's going to get in the game at the end of the game. But I mean, like, I think that we're hitting the part in the schedule. There'll probably be a couple more games, but this was the part in the schedule when I knew my time outside of field goal was very limited of when I was going to see the field. Like Miami, Indiana back before Sig got there, Hawaii, Tulane. Those were the games where I'm like, all right, I got to button up.
You had them circled.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, there's a chance I get in. Whereas, or I don't know. Hopefully, it's the inverse of Columbus, and we are sending our backups in the end of the fourth quarter. Hopefully, beginning of the fourth quarter. But
yeah,
who knows? I'd love to watch Julian Sain and Devin Brown dice them up too. But I just
never know.
don't know.
You never know. I think that, from Ohio State's perspective, they have the advantage. While Oregon does have some good guys, good players, both really at all 3 levels, up front, in that second level at linebacker, and then in the back end. I think that, Ohio State's talent has the potential to really show out on Saturday afternoon. It's going to be really hard to stop the run game, and if they can't stop the running game, when they go play action pass and you're chucking that thing down the field. So for me, that answers our final question, at least on my end. I think they're going to lean on the run game, shorten the game, really force Oregon's offense to try to make big plays. I think Oregon's offense is going to struggle. We'll talk more about that tomorrow night. But if they do that, Ohio State has the ability to shrink the game and then go explosive plays off play action to really lock the door on this one and take care of business.
Yeah, I think that you're gonna see some deep shots available, similar to how they were against Notre Dame last year. If we can start with the run game and get these safeties and get these DBs to bite on the run a little bit more, I think you're gonna see some guys that aren't usually that open.
Yeah.
I think it's just gonna be a fun game. I'm excited. It's the night game. I'll be in Chicago for it, so I'll be at Old Crow in Chicago, watch with all the other Ohio State fans, having a blast. So I think it'll be a good time. Absolutely.
I love it. I absolutely love it. No, it's going to be a great weekend. It's always fun going out west. If you're going out west, safe travels. It's a blast. Spend some time in Eugene this summer, and it is absolutely gorgeous. Take your golf clubs if you got a couple days out there. Maybe try to head out to Bandon Dunes if you're lucky enough. But Kevin, I couldn't stress the importance of Saturday's game for Ohio State and for all fans in Ohio north of Columbus, as our Guardians fell today in a big loss. Our Browns are on a horrible stretch right now. It's not looking good. So, dude, I can't tell you how badly Ohio needs the Buckeyes to get the job done on Saturday.
No, I mean, we're taping before the Guardians play tomorrow, so I'm hoping that I'll have 2 games to watch on Saturday. I'm just hoping.
Hopefully you're running 2 screens. But
we're going on 18 innings without a run. I'm losing my mind over here. It's
bad. The worst.
Falling apart.
The insult to injury is Francisco Lindor hitting a grand slam not 10 seconds ago. So
Yep, perfect.
Miss you, Frankie. But we'll stick to football. We know football a little bit better. But appreciate everyone jumping in with us tonight. Subscribe to our channel. We love doing content just like this for you guys during the week, kind of previewing the upcoming opponent, and especially on game day. And we'll be there on game day. Brendan's heading out west. So we'll have boots on the ground giving you all types of coverage of your Ohio State Buckeyes as we travel out to Eugene. So subscribe to our site here, Ohio State Buckeyes on SI. Go for all of our written content. Head over to our other website, si.com/college/Ohio State. We got you covered wall to wall as we get you set for the marquee matchup of the week. And Ohio State taking on the number 3 Oregon Ducks, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on Saturday night.